Hello and welcome to Great Train Layouts Live. I'm your host, Nick Ozarek, and we've got another build in store for you this evening, or whenever you're watching this. If you're watching this on repeat, it's great to have you along. This is the Metro Belt and Terminal. This is a build I've been looking at for probably before I even got into doing the whole Great Train Layouts Live thing. This was one that, in my copy of 102 track plans by Model Railroader, it stood out, and I've always been wanting to do something with it, and now I've got a good reason to. We're sponsored tonight by Jointed Rail, makers of high-quality diesel locomotives for trains with a Z, and they are supplying the locomotives that we will be using for the MB and T tonight. Before we get to that, though, I want to thank those of you who are tuning in and encourage you to join the chat, where I will be responding to your questions, your comments, your suggestions, and also your inquiries in case I've muted myself or done something funky with the audio. I trust you guys to keep me up and honest with that. So, good to see White Star, Matthew Harris, and Esty Pandy. Glad to have you on board tonight. So, let's talk about the MBNT. So this is an HO scale plan measuring approximately 8.5 by 11.9. It is a little bit of a double-decker in that we've got this staging area that we're going to be having fun with. Oh, I'm realizing I turned my cursor off, so we'll put the cursor back on the screen. And the key is kind of, I call it in the description a 4x8 plus more, in the sense that this middle section, it's actually technically 5x9, but it looks and feels like a 4x8. I mean, right? It looks like a 4x8. But you've got more on the top with that kind of interchange section there. So we are going to have fun building this as soon as I remember where to turn on my cursor in my studio window. And that is by going to the trains window, going to properties, and doing... Oh, my cursor was being captured. Okay, all good. Hey, Iron Horse. Hey, Millennial Modeler. Happy to see you guys. Okay, let us get building. And this is going to be a big one. I think this is going to be a two-parter, which reminds me, you're going to be, some of you who are watching last month are going to be wondering, well, what happened to the Orford, the layout we were building last month? Well, we were going to be building this month, except I kind of got excited and did a lot of work off screen, so there wasn't really a lot left to save. So I will show that to you, maybe at some point in the middle of the stream, if you'd like to see it. We could do something along those lines. So we'll start out with the interchange and work our way to the big 4x8 section, just by lane track. So this is going to be our build for tonight, and probably in January as well, because I feel like we've got a lot of territory to cover here. And this is a cool plan. This merits spending a couple months on. A lot of interesting industries on this too. I think that the intention by this was to do something kind of a la 50s, but we're going to update it a little bit. I feel like I haven't been doing a lot of modern builds. We've done steam era, we've done 60s, 70s, but I felt like it was worth maybe taking some time to do a 90s, 2000s era industrial park, especially once we get to the 4x8 section. That really has a strong industrial park vibe to it, and how we're going to play with that as a scene, that's going to be really interesting to break down. So, as well as having fun with that staging section. We'll do it this way. I'm going to do a little bit of a funky angle on that, and you'll see why once we eventually wrap around to doing scenery for this section over here. Might have to move that a little bit more to get it to not overlap. I'm picky. I like it when the tracks appear properly, and when it does this weird thing where the ballast covers over itself. Oh, I know why it's doing that. I know why. That's why. Only things like that. We'll get this track tightened up here. Looking at the chat, Millennial Modeler. Looks like there's capability to do roundy round ops as well as point to point. Not exactly. I mean, there is a roundy section. I will show that in a moment. But the majority of the layout is a point to point. Now, could you tweak that? Absolutely. You could make this a roundy if you had the space. I'm just doing it as a straight design because I'm really interested to see how it translates as a straight design. So here's the roundy bit. So this is point to point. All of this section is point to point. However, this interchanges with a main line here, and that main line goes underneath the scenery over here, and then it does this funky thing. Well, there are two options, but I chose the funkier thing. So the simple option would have been it just goes underneath, passing siding, and then it reappears. I decided to make things super funky because I see it in my mind's eye. We're going to double-decker this. Like, we're not doing this as a separate staging. We are going to double-decker it. And part of what we're going to do then is have this track cross over itself, and then our staging is over here. It's not a big staging, but there's so many ways you could adapt it. I mean, you could throw a switch off of here. Ooh, that could be interesting. We could throw a switch off of here and then have it going underneath this lawn section, and that might be the sort of meaty staging. Oh, I like that. I really want to do this as double-decker, though. I've started getting more adventurous with doing double-decker Trainz layout builds. Sorry if I keep scratching my nose. It's just very itchy tonight. Because I like the challenge of it, of doing something that they're hard to do, but making it look easy when it's all said and done. So yes, you could make it roundy by having this section which goes off to an interchange do something. Oh, I should also mention, if you want to see the track plan, it is linked in the description. So you can check it out there. I'm going to put these here now for now, although I know that is going to change once we put the actual industry in. And I'll just put the actual industry in. I did some grocery shopping before tonight's stream. So we've got Foundry Sand here. Sand distributor. So that goes here. And then we have... okay. So this is technically an engine shop, but we need a 2-track... a building that accepts 2 tracks for steel fabricators, and this was good enough for me. So we're going to have that line up with the track about here, because we have to make sure it clears the back, which it does, kind of, sort of, barely, but it does clear it. So now we can actually lay the track where it's supposed to go. Try to get it to look kind of, sort of like it makes sense. Although I might need to space out a little bit because of that ladder. Otherwise, that ladder's going to look odd. Will you ever continue Greenfield Village? I mean, Greenfield Village is kind of done, unless you're talking about my actual Greenfield Village layout, in which case I have been working on it. I'm actually working on a crane model that's going to be a static display on the layout. It's a Tichy model. If you're talking about the layout build, I mean, it's kind of done in Trainz. If you want me to release it, I will. It's not something I'm particularly enthusiastic about, because I don't think it has a lot of play value in Trainz. I think it, like, yes, you can set up a train and watch it go around. Speaking of which, my cat has just decided that he wants to get on the train layout. Excuse me a moment. Luca, I don't want you on my train layout. I don't want you to cover that. That's a thing you can. We apologize for the interruption, ladies and gentlemen. We apologize. That's what I get for not pushing my workbench in, speaking of the layout. I just know that if I left them up there, I'd be having to clean up cat hair, which does not excite me. And then put that here, straighten out. Here, that's already good. We'll straighten that. Let's see. Did I finish the CN division point layout? So yes, Matthew, it's 90% done. I need to do some work on that street scene with the trolley. I'll show that a little bit later, maybe at the hour mark or something. We'll take a quick break from this, and I'll take you over to that one so you can see what I've accomplished with it. I did all of the work in terms of putting the fascia on it and so forth. So it looks, as I say, maybe 95% done. I'm really happy with it. It's a fun. I've revisited that multiple times, and it's actually going to influence a real layout that I'm going to start constructing soon, which I'll probably talk about later at some point. I definitely learned from that project. Okay, so now that he can't terrorize my layout, Lucas has decided he's going to join me on my lap. Fair enough. Let's put this. There is a immediate piece. Connects to the Y, and then it connects there. Some of this will be subject to change once we get the actual industries in place, because some of them have interactive track, but we will cross that bridge when we get there. But yeah, industrial parks. In my hometown of Meadville, Pennsylvania, there's what was called the Avtex complex, which was originally American Viscose, and they made parachutes during World War II, and they were a synthetic textile mill, essentially, hence why they made parachutes during World War II. Really nifty place. And shut down in the 70s, and then it ended up being kind of repurposed by an economic development agency. Still, up until the 2000s, not only did it still have track, but there was actually a switcher that would run to the Conrail interchange and switch cars out. And I've always loved tight industrial brick building kind of things as a result of that. It's not something that I know that I would go to modeling. Maybe it's the kind of thing I could see doing as a micro layout. I don't know that I would dedicate a large portion of a full-size model railroad to it, but it's always kind of stood out to me, especially because until maybe 2018, on site there was this 80-ton GE switcher, ex-Navy, that was used for work into the interchange. And they'd, when they removed the track, they cut back the track to the extent that basically, if this was the switcher, the rail was right to the wheels. It was right to the wheels. Like you couldn't have moved that thing back and forth if you wanted to. There was no extra room there at all. So that was a fun little, for those who knew, it was a fun little thing to see. And I always worried about that switcher because I thought this is such a cute little thing, but surely it's going to disappear and go away, because who's going to want to go about preserving a GE 80-ton switcher? The answer to that rhetorical question is the Valley Railroad in Connecticut. They wanted to preserve that switcher, and so they did. And it is now on display. It even has a fresh coat of paint to make it look like a New Haven engine. They did a really nice job on that, and boy, it warmed my heart to see this engine, which I didn't hold a lot of hope on being preserved, because, again, most people are not going to give a second thought to an ex-Navy switcher that's attractive paint scheme was a banana yellow. And yet, it survives. Um, did I make any locos for Greenfield Village? I'm trying to figure out how to do a torch lake. That is something I really want a torch lake, which is their 064, but that's going to be a tricky one to figure out. I am so not a scratch builder. I think what I'm probably going to end up doing is getting one of the brass models and then regaging it, because I saw a person on Facebook who did that and it worked for him, so that might be the way I go about it, but I don't know yet. But it's something I want to figure out, because of the 3 operating steam locomotives at Greenfield Village, that is my favorite. Millennial Modeler. Small loop is cool. My layout is similar. It's mostly point to point, but there's a small area that is mainline loop running as well. Great for when you have guests that aren't into operations. Exactly. And not just that, I mean, that is true. Man, you know, you get on camera and all of a sudden now you have this itch, of course. Sorry. Anyway, yes, being able to display it for guests, but sometimes you just don't, you know, you've had a long day at work, you don't feel like switching puzzles, or even just switching period. Good time to save. I usually don't save until the very end. Let's not do that this time, especially with all this complex track work. So sometimes you want something easy. And so I am a big proponent of, if you have the room to, I mean, some people never need a roundy and good for them, but I'm not one of them. I sometimes need that ability, so I don't know that I'd build a large layout that was ever only point to point. Let's see. Iron Horse. I hope they keep the 1352 in their original Frisco thing. I would not bet on it. I think it's unlikely they will. You're talking, if you've ever been to the Valley Railroad, then you know that one of their steam locomotives is a Chinese-built Mikado that now looks like a New Haven engine. So, hate to burst your bubble there, Iron Horse, but I think the likelihood that that is going to remain in a... that's going to be a Frisco restoration? Nah. But, you know, their engine. They can do with it as they see fit. We're gonna increase the curves a little bit, because Trainz and its lovely funky geometry means that sometimes you gotta just go a little bit off the script, so to speak. And we could do that. The thing I always emphasize with these builds, and those of you watching for a long time know, I emphasize that Trainz is good for the pre-visualization, being able to see the scenery and figure out what you want to do visually. It is not always as solid when it comes to the actual geometry of things. Now, going off of a plan like this is a pretty safe bet, but I wouldn't want to freelance it because of its infinitely flexible flex track. I think I always say I got every track in there, and then I turned that layer off, and then I've forgotten something. But if we look, I really did get every track in there. Our fun connect the dots. Oh, I said that, and then, oh, I've got this little itty bitty spur that I did not connect. Okay. But I didn't have to turn the cheat sheet back on to do that. So yay for that. What's this game called? This is Trainz with a Z. So, now we're going to do the staging bit. And I think what we will do, just to keep things easy, is we're going to call this route layer top. And we're going to... Well, I don't know if I want to lock it yet. At some point I want to lock it, because we're going to lay track over track, and that could get confusing. But we'll try it. So what we're going to do is we're going to unlock the base map layer. This is pretty cool. We're going to unlock the base map layer. And we're going to move the template so that we can make sure that our staging area is accurate. I haven't put the grades in yet, but let's see. That part will come soon. Looks like I didn't quite scale that 100% accurately, but that's okay. I could always just copy it and try to overlay it too. That might be the way to make sure that I get it overlaid accurately. So, I'm going to unlock the dig holes layer. Going to... that could be complicated. No, I'm going to do it the way I was going to do, which is just moving the base map up. If it doesn't line up 100%, I don't think that's a big deal. Goal is to just make it look like one set of the tracks is over the other set of tracks. And kind of go with the elevations as a loose guide. That feels about right. So let us create a new layer, which is going to be root layer, or I could call it either track layer bottom. The advantage of layers in Trainz is that ability to stack things and arrange things so that you can do complex scenes and not accidentally connect things that you didn't mean to do. So we're going to lock the top layer. We're going to work on the bottom layer. At some point I might even hide that top layer. Right now we'll try to make it work. Where it's going to get really interesting is when we start playing with the grades, but I want to get all the track in first, and then we'll play with the grades. We probably won't necessarily get them 100% finesse tonight, just because now would be a good time to hide that top layer. So now we can see, we don't have to look at all that track we were placing on top. We can just have the bottom layer visible. And we could just get it kind of, sort of... Oh, interesting. That made a connection that wasn't supposed to. We'll get this close to where it's supposed to go. We'll straighten this out. That to connect. I'm going to want to put... spline points here, just because that is going to need to be at negative 1.5 in order for the design to work, so all of that has to be flat. So negative 1.5 is negative 3.3 in Trainz scale. Ask me how I know. And then we get our track, the remainder of the track placed around here. In our double-decker design. This is part of the challenging myself standpoint, because I could just make it go into a separate area off staging, but the end product is going to look so much cooler. And I think this is where you're pre-visualizing not just how does the layout function, how do the operations work, how does the scenery look, but you're also kind of pre-visualizing how the whole layout looks in your room. Because we've got the walls and so forth, so that ability to be able to see what the full thing looks like is, especially when you're seriously considering layout, part of the process. Could I do a Cooperstown and Charlotte Valley Railroad HO route Iron Horse? If there was a track plan for it. I tend to go with what there are model railway track plans of. Also what they're trains for. Would not be opposed to doing it as a design, but I don't know anything about it. I would want somebody with the knowledge to put together a track plan, and then maybe I would build it here on the show. Okay, so now we need to connect our top and our bottom layers of track in perfect harmony, or good enough harmony. And some of this, we're just going to rough it for this stream and then finesse it off camera later, because I'd like to keep this interesting for you guys, but that can be the start of things. And then over here, oh, looks like that actually did connect. into its full self. Cool. Okay, so let us now work on the grades element of it. So if we check the full template of the design, the interchange is at a height of 1 inch. And then it goes to 0 inches once it is in the tunnel, and then it has to dip down to 1.5. That's probably going to be a 4% grade. So maybe let's work up from the 1.5 and see where that gets us. I think that's going to be an easier way to do it. And we're also going to have to hide the base map so we can actually see the ground. Because that's part of how we do the double-decker element of this, is we build the layout. The staging is technically going to be under the ground as far as Trainz is concerned, so that the scenery we're applying, we have all the ability to create landforms and so forth. That's part of the fun challenge of it, as it were. So if we do a 4% grade up from that point, which is the... Okay, that actually does track. If you do a 4% grade up, then it's coming to about 0 inches there. So let's try a 3% grade. Slightly easier on your rolling stock. 0.95. Oh, cool. Okay, so that does work. I mean, it's a steep grade, so you'd have to decide if it's right for you, but it does technically work. So that's that portion of it. And then, let's see. Somehow this has to get down to -3, I believe. So yeah, it hits -3 by the time it hits the switches. So the switches are our -3 reference, so that's -6.6 in terms of the track height. For those of you wondering, how do I know? And maybe we're too afraid to ask. It's because the height markers in Trainz are metric. So the way that I'm doing this is essentially just I've done the conversion enough times to know that 2.2 meters of height is 1 inch of... 2.2 meters in the real world is 1 inch in HO. So that is how I know that. Then trying to keep to that 3% grit maximum grade. Get back to the crossing. That actually might be too high. What height is that? Oh, -2.34. Oh yeah, that did go up too high. Interesting problem to have. That's another element that I love about route building in Trainz is that you have this ability to try different grades and figure out, okay, what does a 2% grade look like? Does it actually fit what I'm trying to do? So forth. And that came up with a height 3.6. Cool, that worked. Whether we can get up to from 1.5 to 0 up to there in a 3% grade is questionable, but let's see what that does look like. There's a little bit more extra room on that front too. So -3.3. Oh yeah, I'll have to fix on the other side, and then the 3% grade up from that puts us at a height of, well, that won't be a hard transition. And then a 3% grade up from here, does that get us up to the right height in time? -3.7. Maybe not quite, but it looks like it crosses at the right point, so good enough for me. What is the steepest grade you could create in Trainz, and do the trains actually react to them, or can we watch a motor car go up a 64% hill? I don't know about 64%. Oh, that's okay. Since you asked, and since it won't take too long to try it. Okay, 50% is the maximum gradient you could do. which is a looks like that. So there's our, oh, whoops, I accidentally coupled in other cars. So, yes, there is the steepest grade you can do in Trainz Z. Can we get a Brill motor car to go up it? Probably. Let's see. I'm not, nothing if not here to entertain you guys. There we go. The answer is yes. We can watch it, well, not a 64% grade, but a 50% grade. With a bend in it. A spiral staircase bend, so... Yes, this is why you do not trust Trainz Z alone when it comes to your layout design. Okay, it didn't quite make it up the curved part. But hey, I'd still say that's pretty impressive. That it's not just, you know, sliding down the hill like it probably would in real life. Okay. And then going back to... Where'd my actual track go? Huh? Oh, right, it's all underground. Duh. Yes, okay. There's all my tracks. So that is our underground staging. So we can't really see it that well now, but once we put dig holes in, we will be able to see it. And maybe I'll do that in a moment. But first I'm going to hide the bottom layer of track and just make sure everything makes sense on the top layer here. Oh, something funky happened. We have the wrong piece of track connected here. We could fix that, but we'll have to look at how's that. Yeah, that did some interesting things. Even sometimes when you lock the layers, it doesn't always prevent Trainz Z from doing interesting things, but okay, we need to put the base maps over back here, like so, just so we have that template for reference. That looks pretty much like where I had it before. And then we can hide it and get our track reconnected. So and so. And then what do I need to fix on the bottom? That it broke. Interesting. Oops. Nope, I don't want to delete an entire layer. That is definitely not what I want to do. It tells me okay. That, and then connect that to this, and hopefully that fixed things. Okay, there we go. There's the switch. So that's the bottom layer. Hopefully the top. Yep, okay. Everything's fixed on that front now. And then we just got to make that 0. There we go. So, glad that you enjoyed the doodle car demonstration going up a super steep curve. More than happy to answer your very random but somewhat amusing questions along the way. Okay, now we need to do grades. Oh, I didn't put the staging yard under the bottom section over there. Do I want to worry about that now? I want to get on closer to scenery. So let's just worry about the top, and then I'll put in the staging yard later, because that should be easier. We've had enough fun underground for the moment. So, according to the directions, I mean, they're not really directions, but so this is supposed to be 1 inch off the ground. Means I'll probably have to adapt that grade a little bit, but we're going to say this is 1 inch off the ground, so that should be at a height of 2.2 meters. And that's going to be for all of the track here. All of this track, 1 inch, which gives us 4 inches of clearance around staging, which is probably a good idea. That looks good to me. Probably put that section a little lower just to ease that grade. And now we get into the climb up into the scene. So this smart point should be 2.2 inches high. That's good, or 2 inches high, which is 4.4 meters. That created quite a grade, but let's see what kind of grade it created. Another good thing is you could just get grade. Okay, a 7% grade. That's not what we want. Let's see if we could do it on a 4%. Basically, it has to get to 1 inch by here. So if we say that it's 2.2, what is the grade through here? Okay, yeah, 3 to 4. That seems right. That is steep. So now I shouldn't feel so bad about making the grades in the staging area steep, because even on the layout coming out of that is pretty steep. Does it need to be? Kind of, because it needs to climb up to 4 inches by here, but we don't want to have funky grades in this central switching area. So at 4.2 inches, I'm just going to round that to 4. That's going to be 8.8. We're going to kind of figure out where that central section should be height-wise, because, oh, 3.25. Okay, I am going to bust out the calculator. So 3.25 inches in real-world scale times 87 is 282 inches. I have to convert metric to feet to meters. So 282 inches divided by 12, 23.56. 0.56. 7.18 is the number I'm using. 7.18 is going to be our height for all of, and I'll round that to 7.2. 7.2 is our value for all of these central tracks here. And this is all going to be flat, because you wouldn't want to be worrying about. Part of the challenge with this design, as I look at it already, not that it matters for train sims, but for real life, and that's part of why the way it is, you have to keep in mind your ability to reach into the center. And it is pushing that, like especially this runaround in the center. Your industries are off to the side, but you definitely want to be mindful that people are going to need to reach into the center. One of those, it looks good on paper, it works in a train sim. Does it actually work in real life? It kind of depends on what you need your operations to be. That is part of the factor of it. If we go down 3%, is that going to be enough? Let's see, if we get the grade through here. Yeah, 4% grade. Yeah, actually, we could probably ease up on the grade a little bit, because we have this easing up and then it goes to 3. So if we just made it a 2% grade up from this point, actually, maybe we'll make it 3, and so it won't quite hit 2 inches where it says it's going to hit 2 inches, but in the wrong place. Okay, that feels good. I like the feel of that. So, and then from here, we have to climb up to that 8.8. If we put 3, by the time it should have gotten to 4 inches high, oh, it's actually over 4 inches high. So, yay, that maths accurately. How high is the rest of the layout? Well, the rest of the layout is 4.75. I'm going to round it to 5 inches, because 4.75, it does not matter, as long as it's up. The point is, whenever height it gets to here is kind of the height it is total. The 5 inches would be 11. So if we put in another, let's see, so that's, yeah, close enough. That actually does math out about right. So now everything over here is going to be flat. Going to be the exact same height. which actually means I put this too low. Now, that's going to be interesting. Okay, so we've got, I'll show why that's going to be interesting in a moment. Just as I get all of this track roughly to the same height of things. Some of that won't go because it's on the building, but we will take care of that in a bit. Okay, so here's what's interesting. We've got this scene where you have one siding coming from one side of the layout, then one siding coming from the other side at two different elevations. So what I think we're going to do is we're going to keep that at the height it's supposed to be at, but maybe back it up a little bit so it doesn't come all the way in contact, and then we'll just have some kind of rock face or something along, not rock face, but like a hill. We'll have a hill over here, so that'll keep those visually separated. There could be something cool with that. I mean, if you really wanted to go funky, do we want to go funky? I don't think we want to go funky, but if we wanted to go funky, we could have the track actually climb out of the switch. Oops, wrong side. You could have the track climb out of the switch and then bridge over the scene that way. Does that do anything? Not really anything that I want to do for this build, but it's an interesting detail for what it's worth. We'll just get everything else to the correct height. Oh, 10.57 is such a weird number. Let's just call it 10.6. Most of these, it's not going to matter too much, but just in case. Sometimes it's better to work with clear round tens digits with Trainz even get into minutia of hundreds. Good enough for me. And then all of this gets raised to the same height. While I'm putting this together, streaming this in December of 2023, so I put the question out to you how your holiday seasons are going, if you're doing anything particularly exciting railroading wise or otherwise. I know that one person in this stream is very busy with Operation Toy Train, putting that together, which is quite a feat in its own right. Okay, so this is where, even just at the track layer, we get to kind of visualize what the thing's going to look like. And that's pretty cool. I'm going to have to fix that grade there. That might have to be a 4% grade. But ignoring that dip, this gives you a sense of what the thing looks like. And you can kind of see what it's going to look like with the over-under section with that part of the staging. And so what we're going to do at some point, maybe off stream, is there'll be a switch that goes off of here on the lower level, just continues straight and goes underneath the interchange lawn switching section here, because that's the only thing that I would say is an immediate, I don't know if I'd say an immediate red flag, but a shortcoming of the plan as drawn is you don't have a lot of, you have a short passing siding for staging, and that's it, which isn't much to work with as far as interchange. So to me, to be able to have a staging yard under here, where also we could have the track go down, and ergo have a greater height clearance, so you'd have more room to reach in and assemble trains and cars and so forth, and that way you could bring trains in and out of staging there, and then if you need to, they can back up in and out of staging, and then they go on the loop, and then they go into the scene. Just a little bit more operational variety, shall we say. So, what do we want to begin with? Do we want to begin with the back scene, or do we want to begin figuring out the spaghetti bowl? Because that's another thing, and looking at this, it's it risks being a spaghetti bowl. Like, if we just left it as is, my oh my, that is a lot of track. And I don't think we want that. So the key is going to be to figure out what kinds of buildings to use to not make it feel like it is a spaghetti bowl. So let's dive in. Any requests on whether or not I start on the spaghetti bowl or the back scene? If I hear none, I'm going to start on the spaghetti bowl. While you answer, I'm going to get this adjusted to the right height. I'm going to do that by just using this tool to get everything scenically up to the correct height. Right. Like so. Something tells me I have tracks at different heights through there. Oh, I know why. Because I messed with that track. Yep. So if I put that at 10 points, not 3.7. There we go. There we go. That's what I wanted. Not that it's the theme of this layout, but it does strike me that if you were doing kind of a narrow gauge Colorado mining thing, having this track be some sort of mining track in relation to the lower ones could look really nifty. Not what we're going for here, but a cool thought. SD Pandy, I think it's sort of the underground crossing. One track should grade in front and one grade behind, matching it, and keeping the crossing flat makes the grade too steep. That's true. Well, but they have to cross over at some point in some way. Because if you keep them to the outside, then they don't ever connect. Like, you'd have an inner loop and an outer loop. So they do need to cross over in some capacity. So let us go about the business of the spaghetti bowl. And also see if I can make that track look a little bit prettier in the process. Good. One of the things I like about this plan is that it gives you suggestions for what the industry should be. So we're definitely going to be borrowing heavily from it. There might be some building differences in terms of, because I know that it was featured in the April 2001 issue of Model Railroader, created by Dan Murdock. And I think I've seen the illustration before, and it was brick building. A lot of brick buildings, and I kind of want to avoid brick buildings just because I feel like I use them a lot. I don't want to be too repetitive in terms of what I do. I like varying the types of industries that I use and types of buildings. I've picked some out today that will hopefully accomplish that. At this height here, this is going to be a lumber yard, which that's going to be a fun scene. And continuation lumber yard. What is that track? Let's bring the track plan back up. Ah, interesting, we raised it. That's actually kind of convenient. Okay, so there's nothing listed as far as a function for... So on the track plan, they list this stub end as an interchange track, which kind of makes sense. One of the challenges that you have in operating this is you really don't have a lot of room for interchange. Like, ideally, you'd have one more track on this passing track area, but you don't have room for it, both in terms of the lengthwise and also how close you get to the top scene. So you need to put your cars somewhere, so this is an interchange track to pick up and drop off. Add some operational steps, but I could dig it. Okay, so that does not need... That's going to be in the hillside, so we don't need to worry about that. We've got Commerce Street coming in, and that Commerce Street is going to go all the way across the scene. Basically into both scenes. That should be interesting. Ah, tall brick warehouses. See, this is where we get into the brick warehouse thing, because they say tall brick warehouses as a means of scenically dividing the top and bottom scenes. We could do that, but we'll see if we come up with an alternative method of doing that. So, let us get the remainder of this same height. And then we can do a track adjustment to the bottom later, height-wise, just to get that to where we like it. I'm seeing a soup emoji from Kevin. I presume that is a good thing. I am very much a novice when it comes to the meaning of a lot of emojis. So I will take your word that that is a good thing. There are sometimes I feel the O word. And I know I'm not actually the O word, but especially when I go on Discord and I see some of the humor of today's youth. I think to myself, I feel like the Steve Buscemi meme of "How do you do, fellow kids?" Let's see, let's go down like that, and there. And we'll refine that more once we get to that stage of things. But that will get us most of the way there. We're gonna have some interesting landscaping going ahead. I like it as a scene, though. It was supposed to be a spaghetti. Oh, okay. Yeah, from here it looks soup. But, okay, I see what you're saying. Yes, I hear you, Kevin. Initially, it looks spaghetti. We're going to try to make it look less spaghetti. I think it's possible. But that is why we are here to play with these ideas scenically. Let me see if I can get a yarn bridge for the this gap over here. Yarn bridge. It's a 4-lane. I need a 2-lane. That's a 2-lane. That'll work. And apply the height. Apply it over the grade, and then it turns into a yarn 2 road with a center divider. Like so. Do the thing to the thing. Goes up there. Crosses in some form or fashion over these tracks. Yep. Looks like it goes, yeah, pretty much where the switches aren't. I can do that. That makes sense. And then we'll straighten that so that it looks accurate. Okay. We will refine that as we go. Lumberyard. So this near building is supposed to be an industrial gas distributor. So tank cars. See if we have... what kind of building do I want to use for that? I kind of want to use this one for that. This feels like the type of building that would be attached to a gas distributor. If nothing else, I like it. Although, do I want it that way, or do I want... oh, that way, yeah. That makes sense. That the nicer... because these are offices and stuff, so they should have the nicer view out. I can dig it. And then we need some tanks. Of some description. Been reading an interesting book. I don't have it with me, or I'd show it to you on the camera. By Jeff Wilson. Kalmbach published it. Called How to Model Industries. We actually published, okay, the Model Railroader's Guide to Industries Along the Tracks. There's 4 editions that he did, and each focuses on different industries. I bought the first one for cheap at a hobby shop. It is a tremendous resource. So if you're trying to figure out what you want to do for industries on your layout, or even if you're not, like I'm reading about these industries, and he does a really great job of kind of simplifying the history of them, the the buildings that you would see with them, and then how you would model them. They're really great resources. So assuming the other three are as good as the first volume. Right now I'm finishing up the book and reading about the livestock industry, and that was very interesting. Fortunately, he does not go into too much detail with the livestock industry for obvious reasons, but he goes into enough where it's like, okay, I get a sense of what buildings you would need and what kind of cars, and I like that. That is actually okay, this is a water treatment tank. I do like it, but not quite the right tank. So if you're on the lookout for good breeding material, again, not even if you can, I have a thing that this would be useful for in another layout. I'm gonna grab that, even though I don't need that for here. That is a cool building for another purpose. That's a good book. Recommend it. I just picked up on eBay his book for engine terminals. You could see where this is going. Concrete ones, that doesn't feel right. I feel like I need metal tanks. Horizontal tanks, industrial tanks on platform. Bit too big of a base. There we go. Good enough. 3 tanks, which we will refine once we've figured out the landscaping around there. And then we'll need some kind of I always struggle when it comes to like what type of tank unloading facilities to put in place, because I have JR tank loader. Gee, I wonder if that'll fit. I go to all this trouble and then here's the thing I need. Yeah, I went to all that trouble and here's the thing I need. Okay, well, at least I found the thing I need. Maybe we'll have another use for these elsewhere there. I'm gonna move them over there, and maybe we'll use them later. I know I could just delete them and respawn them, but I might have to move things a bit. But that's not a big deal, because we actually have a lot of dead space over here. If we move this building and we move that... Oh yeah, that works. That totally works. Like so. Let's see how that looks without the base. Oh yeah. Yeah, no, that's cool. I dig it. I mean, you could argue that we should be able to see the tank unloading and not have it in a shed. I will figure that out later. I don't know that I feel capable of making a decision on that front. Now, over across from the tank farm is a lumber distributor. So for that, we're going to need an office of some sort. Kind of like what we had for there. I always hate when I press a shortcut and then it goes to the wrong place. I don't love this building, but it's something different. I might change it. But I don't feel like we certainly wouldn't be having that kind of office, so... That reminds me of another layout I want to build. Keep having these ideas of like, oh, that's not useful for this project, but that is useful for that project. Cool building. I don't think it's useful for here. I do want to use that, but that's for another place. We need some metal corrugated buildings. Actually, I have some lumber sheds, I think. See, these JR buildings are exactly the right idea, but they are also gigantic. I almost want to do the lumber dock because that would be a cool thing to have, but it doesn't quite fit with what we have in there. Ah, well. I could make those ramps custom if I needed to. Lumber stacks. Lumberyard warehouse. Well, that's a older warehouse. Cool looking warehouse, but not quite what we're going for. That is too big. Lumber stacks. Interesting. Not what I'm going for, but that's a cool factory. Oh, there's a lumber office for you. That office alone takes up the whole yard. I don't have use for it now, but that truck's cool. We'll leave that in place. Shed. I think I need an open shed, actually. Fair open shed. Sure. A bit too big, though? I mean, I like it, but then the whole thing is under one. And I kind of like the idea of having two smaller ones. There we go. Perfect. Yep. There and there. And arguably those should be closed-in buildings. But they at least fit the footprint. Yeah, they do look kind of too temporary, though, if we go with open sheds. If we go with open sheds, it makes sense from an access standpoint, but I kind of feel like... I feel like I want warehouses or that kind of... some flat structures in this area. Let's see what you guys think on this subject. For tank unloading assets, the keyword rack has some favorable choices. That JR one is a solid choice as well. Okay, well, if you guys like the JR... because... yeah, I could go with the JR one. What other... that's a cool building. I just don't know if it's too, like, open is the thing. I mean, it looks... this might do the trick, though. This might. Like, that looks more permanent. It doesn't look flimsy. I think we can make that work. Especially if we put some ramps on it that look permanent. Maybe even put the whole thing on like a ramp. Then it's... yeah. I think we can go with that. Definitely should go with the ramps, though. That might be a later thing, though. Because this is going to be... yeah. We're an hour of the way through. Want to get to the play session at about the 2-hour mark. So... let's have a look at that without the base map in place. I dig it. I see it. I like it. Let's also make it a little bit easier on us by putting... so, I do think that you would need some kind of scenic divider here. I just don't think there's any way... like, could you make this all part of a continuous scene? Yeah, but I kind of prefer the idea that there's a divider. So we're going to put a divider in with the walls layer. And we're going to go with the double spline. So this is a backdrop asset that I created that has sky on both sides. And that way, we can have some sense of separation between the two sides. As far as height, sure. We'll go with 7.2. 7.2. And set it to that height. Because that way, then, you just get a little bit more of a sense of, okay, here's one part of the terminal railroad, and here's another part of the terminal railroad. Which also is going to beg the question of if we have an engine facility. Not a big one. I think the idea is that you use this area as an engine facility. There was a write-up on it. I probably will read it before I do part 2 of streaming on this, just to kind of triangulate. I like going into this blind and sort of just figuring out what I want to do. But it'd be interesting once I've made certain decisions to base off of that. Let's see. Nonami, aka No Name. That steel shed you swapped in has variants with one or more enclosed sides. I could grab cues if it... yeah, sure. If you could grab a cued for that that open shed, since you recognize it, that'd be great. Just to give ourselves some options. Yeah, shed, steel, beam, open. And then that saves me having to grocery shop on the stream. We'll go with that from a sort of loose standpoint. Because I feel like the choice is either I do super detailing on this and then save the second half for next week. I kind of want to do super detailing on this, though. Let's see where things get us. Okay. Because I want to have something to be able to work with where it's like, this looks complete and done and cool. Interesting, though, the clearance we need to have. Should probably put a train underneath. Now, we're going to say no double stacks. We're going to keep it all to single stack level, which means that my doodle bug, which kind of sort of survived... Oh, right. Yay for finding... not getting too far down the rabbit hole and putting everything on the wrong layer. So, we put the doodle bug somewhere. Maybe it has to go on the session layer. I might not have any luck facing the doodle bug. How interesting. Okay, good enough. So, if we are using... Oh, I know why I'm not having luck, because it's probably placing them underground. Like that engine just was. Alright, so if that needs to be our clearance, then it needs to clear about yay much. And arguably, you could be like, well, that's a pretty heavy-duty bridge. We could go with something lighter. We could. But I also don't know that it really changes our trajectory of the design too much with that extra height. Because we can raise this building up a little bit and landscape around it. I mean, technically you'd have a parking lot for this building. This gets into what matters in modeling and what does not. Where do your priorities lie? What do you... Because you can't ever really have it all, but what are the important bits that you want to have? Oh, the other thing I'm realizing is the way that bridge cuts off. That's going to be interesting to figure out with the doing the dig holes underneath. I don't know, maybe that bridge is a little bit too imposing. So if there's a bridge that I prefer, it's a little... I mean, I like that bridge, but that's even more imposing, I think. Yeah, I don't like that one quite as much. This is a 4-lane, and that's a 4-lane. Let's just search road bridge. I have a... that might be the thing to go with. Oh, yeah. Yeah. That one. I'm using this on another build. It just looks a bit more colorful. And it's not as busy underneath. It still requires a little bit of clearance. But I like it more. So, yay for liking it more. And we'll raise it up so that it's not clipping the train. Up the same height requirements. But we could probably put it a little lower. But that's about it. Maybe let's go with a straight though. Only because I want this to... I'm not sure how I'm going to get this to make sense with the bottom layer at all yet, but... Because I want it to look like that, but then I've got this whole edge to deal with. That's a problem for another day. I've got a bridge I like. I like what it does here. Like it's colorful. It's a nice piece. Something different. This is really... I can't quite describe what I had in my mind. This isn't it, but that's not a bad thing by any stretch of the imagination. I like what it's resulting in. I think what we're going to have to accept is that the employees of this particular fine establishment have... well, okay. Thought. We could put a parking lot... What goes in this triangle here? I actually don't know. Okay, so they have quote-unquote old stores in there, and then there's an access road to a scrapyard, which we're going to get to in a moment. That's an interesting question. How do I do that as a thing? That's interesting. That's very interesting to me. Oh, thank you for the cue. It's Nonami. Appreciate it. Because I'm tempted to in here. So their suggestion is having some kind of yes, or maybe just to kind of test the idea out. Oh, for really going, I don't know. This is where it gets into like, yes, it's realistic, but it's also kind of gaudy. The case to be made for having an advanced auto parts, though. So we could do a building there. We could also just do a parking lot, and because the road is elevated, there's like a tunnel that goes to this chemical plant. I mean, you're also begged to wonder, well, where do the trucks unload and all these kinds of things. I don't think you can think that heavily into it. I think the suggestion is that you would have, so it's a gas station, so the suggestion is that your trucks pull into this lot here, and that's where they do the transfer. But I think the reality is you just don't have enough room. So I think it falls into the kind of category of, I would not think too. I'm not thinking too heavily into it, and I would suggest you do the same. I think is the Austin Powers quote. Because I like that scene too. I like those buildings too much. I mean, is it a bit of a contrast with like, hey, here's an office with a view of a tank? It is a bit peculiar. I won't deny. Those tanks may be a bit too large. That might be a bit too overwhelming. What happens when I bring in the three amigos? That is their official name. Yeah, that maybe feels a little bit more reasonable. You still run into this question of how trucks get around to here. Visually I like the building where it's at. Base-wise, what if I just turn it sideways? Maybe that's the easy thing. I just don't like that as much. It's funny, you just get hung up on certain details. It's like, oh, but I like it that way. An auto zone. Well, now I'm stuck on. So, point is, that's not quite what he had in mind, but so stores. So you could have stores in the kind of like, here's a not that old. Sure, a military surplus store. Okay, so something like this, I think, is what he intended with old stores. And that is one way to go about it. I mean, this is not rail related, but the other option is to do a parking lot. I said that out loud and I kind of like it. Because, yeah, parking lot's not the most exciting thing, but it is something you can look through, which I do appreciate. And it does make sense. Especially if we're kind of denying the employees their ability to park over here. But we could also try to create a little bit more room by moving those tanks down, and then we move the building down like so. Why is there a door to Oblivion? I don't know. I wish I did. But we can make that work. I mean, you still run into questions about these tanks and how anybody gets to them. You could put a bridge over here, except nah, because you don't have enough clearance by that point with the track raising up. Yeah, we're going to leave that as is. Otherwise, I'm just going to obsess over that tank farm on stream. But back to this. So we could either have an old store in the sense of here's a store like this and build up around it. But I kind of like the idea of having a parking lot, even though it's not the most exciting thing. It is realistic. Let's compare the two. Okay, and then you can vote. The viewers at home can decide. Are we going with old stores, or are we going with parking lot? I think I have parked cars. Yes, okay. So, not that I would use the same pattern of cars over and over, but just as a hypothetical. The parking lot maybe makes a little bit more sense visually. It's partially a matter of what we do here, too. visually. I think, so we're going to do a wall for that. A concrete retaining wall, but definitely not old-fashioned stone. This is too where we're kind of getting and experimenting of, do we do this, do we do that? Yeah, definitely not old-fashioned stone. It looks cool, but I use it a lot in other places. I'm trying to go with something more like concrete. Stone, retaining wall, clean. Retain. Let's just look up my retaining walls and see what our options are. There we go. Okay. Oh, and I'm also realizing an interesting challenge of what I've taken on is that if I have too many assets that go underground and stand out, they'll be visible in the staging area. So ordinarily this wall would work. But it might not actually work for what we're doing in this build. But just to kind of try the proof of concept. This is what we do if it's your average... That looks pretty boss, actually. I gotta say, I do like that. Like something about that scene with the bridge and the parked cars. Yeah. I think we're going in that direction of things. I see your vote for Old Store, Kevin. Maybe we can do a little bit of both without it feeling too crowded. So if we put the store next to the tracks, although you would need a little bit of room for cars to park in the front of the store. Unless they don't. Unless they cars park in the back, duh. Got it. Yep, thank you. Don't know who I'm thanking. But I'm thanking somebody for that. Because yeah, if we put the stores here, and then the car park in the back. Of course, that makes sense. That actually makes perfect sense. Yeah. That's nice. I dig it. So you've got the, well, I want that to be, well, yeah, I kind of need it to be so that the cars can have a place to drive. Not sure how to deal with that corner visually. I'll figure that out in a moment. Maybe I'll put a dumpster there or something. But with the point being that there's the land coming in, we need it to get down to ground level of 7.20 by this point. And then replace that in here-ish, kinda, sorta. And then I should probably straighten this road out. And actually maybe move that a wee bit over here. That seems right. Okay. Then if we're sculpting the land, the road look a little bit more naturally blended in. I don't yet know how I'm going to make that corner work. It is odd. Unless it's not connected and we put a fence. That's probably the thing that makes sense. Because if we try to connect it, it's just going to be odd. But if we make it sort of like a dirt berm and as if this was the back, yeah, okay, I see that. But man, I really liked how that bridge came out. I just wish everyone could like chop that bridge in half so that I don't have to have the extra bit that I don't want to have showing. That's an interesting conundrum. But does that look cool? But I feel like I've seen this. Like this looks right. I just have to see if I can find another wall asset because I know that's gonna look weird with staging. But that's probably going to be something to worry about off stream because at least it looks good here, unless I can find something pretty quickly where I'm like, oh yeah, that totally works and makes sense visually. That's an interesting asset. That actually might work. It doesn't have the fence on top, but we can add a fence to it. No, that's pretty tall. That probably is also going to stick out. Underground. Oh yeah, even more so than the other. Oh, that will not work. That... all these retaining walls are just a little too tall for what I'm looking for. They're like so close and yet not quite. I might also reskim one of the other retaining walls. They're so close, but they're just all just a little too tall. I don't want to tie retaining wall. That, too tall. What's this one? Way too tall is what it is. Yeah, I'll just have to figure that out off stream. But we'll get the general pattern of it down and then I can finesse it later. Question now becomes, what does it lead to? So, I don't want this all to be retaining wall. Maybe just this section here, and that's it. And then the rest becomes like a berm. I think I prefer that. Because I would like to have some grassy bits. I don't want it to be too bereft of color. And ordinarily I'd be like, oh, I don't want to go too heavy on trees. I always do trees, but I didn't do a single tree last month. So I feel like I've earned my trees this month, if that makes any degree of sense. What if you push that store building towards the bridge road, leaving more space for parking? Could sneak a pipe bridge over the track somewhere to imply that's part of the complex. Ah, I like that. Yeah, putting some pipes over the tracks. Plus, then it gives you something else visually going on with it. I dig that. Just to do a proof of concept on that. Thank you, Nonami, again. Pipe. Ethanol facility. That is does not have enough. I need something that has a bit of structure to it. Like that looks cool. I have no idea if it'd be the right kind of piping for this, but it looks cool. So from that standpoint, sure. So 10.7 is our height. Yeah. What it goes into is also another question. But does that look cool and industrial? I just don't know. The only thing I'm not certain about is, like, would you see pipes going over a... Would you see them going over a main line in that way? The answer that I can think of, there's a plant in Franklin, Pennsylvania, along the western New York and Pennsylvania, and I used to chase it. Electralloy was the company, and they had this big industrial pipe that went over the track through that scene. That is a scene that I'd love to recreate. Maybe I'll find a way to do that on here, where like the main line cuts through this plant and there's a parking lot and building, because the plant isn't serviced by rail, but the track cuts right through it. That's an interesting plant. Don't know. Maybe if I find something a little bit more, I suppose it's not, like, I just don't know if there's laws about, could you put a pipe over a railroad track like that? I just don't know. Some of it is that they don't, some of these just don't have enough of a elevation. I'll put this back in and just leave it for the time being. It looks cool. It's not gonna leak in the sim. I can go with that. So oh, and you gave me those QIDs. Let me see if I can find those briefly. Dead wheel beam closed. Yep, I see both of the ones that you mentioned. And I will download both and see. Okay, so here's the entirely enclosed version of that. which I like as a structure, but doesn't feel right for a lumber facility. Not on all sides. But maybe closed on one side. I dig that. Actually, I like that. Because then there's a little bit of a sense of sheltering and, yeah. Okay, that's cool. Closed side, closed end. Closed sides, plural, maybe. Only thing is then it doesn't make sense visually because the trucks can't get to it. So we'll just do what we did before. Yep, that makes sense. So now, and figuring out the split between these sides. That's going to be another building thing. Yeah, we'll come back to textures and fine detailing on this, but I want to get some other buildings placed on this side here and figure that out. This is a scrapyard. That's going to be easy. We'll put some fencing up in anticipation of it, but the scrapyard itself will not be hard. And then, but we'll save that because there's a lot of flexibility with what we do with that, and there's less flexibility with the industry that they have. I like this one. This is supposed to be a beer distributor. Now, I couldn't find any specific beer distributors, but just to give you a sense of what we're going for, this is way too big for what we've got room for. But it's worth mentioning since it does involve our sponsor, Jointed Rail. So, Cold Creek Logistics is a add-on pack by Jointed Rail, our sponsor. And you should... we'll be playing with their trains later today, and I'm working on upgrading their Cold Creek Logistics route. Maybe it's CCL. Cold storage warehouse? Yeah, kind of something like this. I mean, this is way too big, but that's what we're going for in theme. I see the beer distributor as something like that. It's some kind of warehouse where you've got a track coming in. That's it. This is Cold Creek Logistics. It just needs the billboard on top. Obviously a little big for what we're doing here today. But that's the idea of what we're going for. Just a somewhat smaller version of that. And that's somewhat smaller version of that. I think I tried looking up distributor, and there aren't a lot of distributor buildings. Like, you've got something like this as a food distribution center, but that's clearly not our era. A grocery distributor. Now, I like this building, but that also is not quite our era. That's going to be giant. That's giant. I love these JR buildings. They're great for full-size layouts, just a little big for these model railroad modules. See about warehouses. We need something kind of square. That would work for our tall brick building, but not quite what we're going for this build. But you could see what they envision is like if you put this over here, how that's going to serve as a natural view block between your two scenes. There we go. Perfect. Bach Beerware, and it even has beer in the name. Perfect. Okay. So we'll do this with the idea that there would definitely be a track going inside of it, but I think this is a road door entrance, so we might have to modify it and put our own kind of spin on it. That's B. What's A look like? Oh, A just doesn't have any door on it. Okay. So maybe we'll use A and... Am I still coming through, guys? I just looked at my stream and I noticed that I'm getting a loading sign. So let me know if you're not seeing something working. Because on my end, it's kind of frozen. Okay. Seems like it's working now. Sorry about that. Just saw something unusual going on my side and thought, oh, maybe it's affecting other people. Okay, so we'll put in a custom loading door to be able to make sure that that makes visual sense. But now we have our beer distributor. And we also have a building that the cars can roll into, which I think adds a little bit of interest. And then the scrapyard goes here. Now, over here, this track is supposed to service... actually, this is a team track. So that could be cool. Transload facility. And then, yeah. So over here, if we look... Actually, I can bring up the plan so you guys can see it properly. Oh, I just realized I put a lot of things on the session later. Of course I did. Okay, that'll fix later. But if we go to the base maps layer, you can see that both these blue buildings, this area over here and this one here, are supposed to be the tall brick warehouses. Recognizing, obviously, that this one can't be served by rail because there's no siding to it. Actually, neither... Well, this one could be served by rail. But is that what we want to do? Question mark. To my way of thinking, we need some kind of building in here, in what's currently a valley, but we'll fix that. We need some kind of building in there that's going to work at multiple heights, and also help to make this difference in height not stand out as much as it currently does. So we could do a brick building. I mean, what's the harm in a brick building? Let's have a look at our warehouses since we're on that subject anyway. What was an industry that I thought would be cool to model? Oh, I went to near where I live. There's a business that opened up that's making temporary, like, semi-permanent shelters. So they have steel structure and canvas outsides. So that would... I looked at that and thought that would be a cool thing to have modeled. The key is to think of, like, how to get the most diversity of rail cars. So we've got center beams, tanks, reefers, gondolas covered so far. And over there, we're going to have some covered hoppers and so forth. So we really can't afford to just do some sort of manufacture. But I like the idea of that, of just making this some type of manufacturer. The question is, what kind of manufacturer do we make it? But I like the idea of making them kind of some kind of something where I have actually seen in real life and can be like, hey, that's a thing that I based on a real thing. Hardware stores. Interesting. Not what I'm going for, but interesting. That's a little bit more... See, this is what I think they're envisioning. I do like that. It's a little big for the space. But I like the spirit of it. I may end up kit bashing something in 3D modeling too if I can't quite get what I'm looking for, but those are nice options for sure. I definitely think we need something tall. I think the problem is if we go for something flat, it's all a little too visually samey. The idea of putting a tall building, not super tall, but somewhat tall structure is appealing. That's a neat structure. Too big, but it's a neat structure. Download so many things, and then you end up looking through your assets and going, well, that's kind of neat. Oh, that's cool. Like, oh, that's a cool building. I don't really have room for it, but it's a cool building. Lumber warehouse. Not quite what I need there. I do think we need something with a little bit of height. Otherwise, it's just like, not that we would use this, but you look at it and you go, yeah, but then it's all just kind of flat. Need something to suggest that there's a little bit more developed industry. That makes sense. History too. Like, I think one of the reasons why this one can be a brick warehouse is because it gives a sense that there's old industry mixed in with new industry, and I do like that. Heat structure doesn't work for this, but heat structure also doesn't work for this, but also a heat structure. Not quite what I'm going for. I like it. See, the thing is, if you put it like that, then it's just like, okay, but what's all this meaning? One could put it there. I do like the idea of it being a divider, especially because given how far away it is, you figure it needs to make sense more visually from this side, because that's where you'd actually work it. That makes sense. Does it fit? Nope. Cool building, though. But that's the nature of it. You just try different things. That's a very cool building. No way it fits, but unless you made it kind of straddle the tracks like so. But something tells me we don't have enough clearance for that. Not with modern rolling stock. Yeah, all it's just a little too big. But cool structures. See, something like this works. That absolutely fits. I just don't know if it's... I feel like now you're seeing... Because that's the thing, is you're seeing all the way into the staging area. And I think that doesn't quite do it. Hey, Nerf Guy. Glad you could join us. Ooh, so close. Like, that almost just about fits. All of these, it's like, if we didn't have that corner, they'd be perfect. Because it's different, and it's old. But you see what I mean, right? Like, you're looking at this, as I am, maybe, and seeing how the size of it makes sense for it. Just needs to be a little more compact. Ooh, that's an ornate one. It's a bit too small. There was a few that I'd saved here too. Now this one's interesting to me because of how it has these loading docks on the lower end. But you could put up... I like this. Now it doesn't solve the whole height thing, but what I like about it is that it works on multiple levels. So if you're looking at it from over here, you're like, okay, that makes sense. The only downside that I'm seeing as I'm looking at this is, do I really want to be able to see all of that track from here? I kind of feel like we need some kind of divider of some type. Like, now I'm really seeing the need for those tall buildings. I wish I remembered what the name was of one of the ones that I want to look for. There's I'm looking towards it. Oh, wait. Not that one. Oh, I should look at those EMT industrial buildings. Maybe there's something in there that'll satisfy my cravings. That's a nice small building. Getting other ideas. Maybe we could fit that in somewhere, though. Could that be the scrap dealer office? I mean, it's maybe a bit too... Nah, it's too ornate. It's too big. But these are the ideas we play around with. Oof. Again, it's like I like the feel and the look of it. And just know that it's obviously way too big. But if only. So, and industrial. But that's so much of the experimentation with this, is trying these different buildings and figuring out, okay, what makes sense? And also what fits. Nice big backdrop buildings. Not quite what we need for here. I have a feeling that's going to come in handy over there. I'm going to place that for later. Before I forget. I could just pick the rest of it also. Ooh. So close to fitting. Maybe we need to rethink this. Okay. What if instead of having the track haul this close, could we fit the building if it... Yeah, it's tight. But we could fit the building if it goes like that. And the advantage being... Yeah, that... Oh, I do like the look of that a lot. I mean, it is imposing. That's the only downside to it, as I see it. How much longer do we reach Trainz Matthew Harris? Just 20 minutes, and then then we'll fire up some trains and run some switching. I might also take us back to last week's build and play a little bit there, since we haven't really gotten much into the scenery from a full detail standpoint. But tell me what you think of this one, if you is like this industry here. I think this could work. I mean, it's a little awkward how it's arranged, but it does work for me. Well, I think it works more like this. It's super big and imposing. Getting it to fit is going to be tricky, but not impossible. I think if we go like that, it fits. And there's just something about that that looks right, so that now you've got these other scenes over here that work. I mean, it is very imposing. There's just no lie for that. But it also then, it sucks up your attention so much that then you don't really pay attention to what's beyond it. I'm gonna try this and see if we can make it work. It is deviating from the plan a little bit, but not actually that much. Because we still have the track, and we could still fit a transload facility in here, and I like all of that. We just need to maybe do a little bit of tweaking around here to get this to fit as well. But I like the idea of having some big manufacturer on the line, too. So if we do it like so... And then we could put some kind of shelter over these tracks to make it look like it's an extension of this. Yeah, I like that. Because it just... That looks cool. And it so helps to divide the scene. So the sky works as far as dividing that part of the scene. And then you divide the rest of the scene with this. I like that. Not often that I can fit a building that big into a scene either. So we're going to go that route. And then for the transload facility... Oh, what do we need for transloading? No, I don't know if I want to worry about that just yet. We've done enough with this. Let's get some ground textures in place so it's a little bit more presentable for our play session in the remaining 15 minutes before we get to that. We'll see what we can do to get things a little cleaned and polished. Oh, yeah. Like, it is very close to the beer distributor as well, but we can... But the beer distributor should be going over the track anyway. We could put some trees. Yeah. No, that makes sense. That feels realistic. See if I can find some kind of door asset that's... Well, the problem with these ones is that they're never big enough. They're designed for road as a rail. Unless I double stacked it. Built one and then another on top of it. Yeah, I could do that. Sure. is my angle. And then turn this to 105.2. And then move it over top ever so slightly. Not that tall, just maybe that tall. And then we move it so that it overlaps the bottom one. Does it look perfect? No. Does it work as a kit bash? Yes. Not actually that bad. I dig that. Okay. So let's do some ground texturing and some spline cleanup too. A lot of questions. Like how we contextualize this. So this should probably, I feel like this should go up because we don't have a lot of higher ground. And if we've learned anything from Obi-Wan Kenobi, we know that it's best to have the higher ground. So we're going to put this up. Actually, we could do that too by just raising the ground to that height, which also makes sense. Yep. And then we'll manually lower it to accommodate the tracks. And not that big. We'll just lower it around there. But yeah, I do like that. I'm happy with how this is turning out. Very different than what I envisioned. It's hard to explain how I had this idea of what it would be in my mind, and this is different from what I had in my mind, but I count that as a good thing. We could put buildings back there. We could really build this up, but I kind of want a little bit of a nature break because we're going to have a tunnel here, which also begs questions about what the tunnel's made of, but those are questions for another day. Let us pull that track a little bit back because I think that's indoor single. What's that thing? Oh, interesting. Well, if I was doing a bridge that needed to end in the middle of nothing, that's a good bridge to use. Could turn that into a road bridge. But I'll figure that out later. Oh, interesting how it... Very interesting. Okay. Let's do retaining wall stuff. CL retain. This can be stone. I think this could be stone because the implication with this one is that it's, it's been for the railroad, so it's been in existence for quite some time. Like, certainly since the steam era, so this can be older. I mean, that could be the case too with the other one, but I think the other one, it's like the parking lot was added later. Something along those lines. So if we add here to here, and yep, that looks like what I want. So we'll start it from down. Well, that gets into questions about the lower level too, but for another time. We'll just connect these for now. This over here. I'm going to... There we are. I'm going to use this as the bottom piece. Here, and then lower down like so. Oh, thank you, Jordan Freeman, for acknowledging my Obi-Wan Kenobi reference. Most appreciated. Most appreciated. You know how you have no idea how much it means to have my puns and pop culture references acknowledged. That goes to that here. Yeah, that's comfortable enough. We lower that. Looks like this. And then lower that ever so slightly. Yep. That is what I wanted. Ish. Always an interesting art form to get the edges just the way you want them. But I like that. That looks cool. Now we just need to get the inside figured out. Get that refined and smoothed in. Probably have to do a wall for the inside track too, unless I raise that track up with the ground. But then you're kind of building your parking track as a ramp, which does not seem like a good idea to me. So we won't worry about that too much today. And then increasing that by height, like so. He is just to make sure none of the cars clip, because one of the things I'm mindful of is being able to have center beams go along this curve. They could spawn from the other side of the railroad, and that could be an interesting sort of operational element, is where you design your operation so certain cars can only go on certain parts of the layout because they can only fit on certain parts of the layout. It's one way of handling a limitation like that. All depends on what you are comfortable with operationally and what you're comfortable with as far as limitations are concerned. So I'm going to move that back a bit, which does shorten it, but I think it needs to be that way. 1.18 to get that. There we go. And then some haze bumpers so that we don't find ourselves rolling cars off the end. Seven minutes. Edison Railfed. Well, glad that you came back and glad that you think it looks great. This is certainly... do we have a... Oh, yes. Yellow feels totally fitting for these. I don't usually go for something so bright, but yellow feels good for that. We'll put a regular rusty one there. And we're going to move. In the long run, we're going to make this parking lot nicer. Short run, I just want to get the ground covered so that we're not driving over all of this grid. Boring nothingness of grid. So, use that. I'm going to raise this up to that height. Perfect. Okay, and then we can do that the same over there. And then I think in the long run, what we'll do when we're finessing it is that this will just be green, like bushes and so forth, to separate the two sections. Could do trees, but then the problem you create is the ability to reach over the trees to get to your industries. Like here, you've got the beer distributor and so forth, and you want to be careful of that. That is good enough for landscaping for today. Like, yeah, we've got some issues when we get over here, but that's just going to be next time. I just want to make sure I get this reasonably leveled out. I'd almost be interested if we buried that part of the warehouse so you didn't see it, or so you saw it from one side and then you look on another side and it's something completely different. That could be kind of interesting. Not sure how I want to do that. Might just tree it in too. That's a possibility. Food for thought. Let's get some ground textures on here, just so we have something in place. I'm going to use a dirt as a base, and then we'll paint different things over that. That as dark as I want it. Yeah, that feels right. So this is going to be kind of our base coat, or base color. Everything we do is going to be based off of this. So... yeah. Now we need we need some fencing. Never did make that scrapyard fencing, so... we want very, very modern chain link fence. Chain link security fence. Yeah, that feels nice and robust and like what a scrapyard would have. So the scrapyard is technically here. I think that's the outer limits of it. And then maybe having it follow the curve of the outside. I also don't want to make it too big because scrapyards are kind of unattractive. Maybe if, yeah, just this half of it then. And then we can make this like a, you know what I thought of recently? I thought to myself, it would be so nice to have like a reason to have construction vehicles. And one could always do a scene with them. But what if we did like a yard where they were parked? I downloaded a full, yeah, a few of these. But these have to be stored somewhere. I mean, they might be stored in a garage, but it'd also look cool if they were displayed out in the open. We'll go that route. Okay, back to the, so we are scrap. We'll do a gray scrap for this. And then we need a mixed with some of the dirt, I guess. And then we need a crane. Wonder if I have a scrap crane. I do. Ooh, that looks neat. Maybe a bit over imposing. Maybe a bit too big. What do we have that's maybe a little bit more... oops. A little bit more subdued? Sure. That feels a little bit more subdued. Then we need some kind of trailer office. Trailer... wonder if I could search for trailer office as opposed to just trailers. Oof. We really want to make it look podunk. There's your office. Maybe a little too cartoony. But it does feel in keeping with a scrapyard. We'll leave it there for now. I've got bigger fish to fry. I need to make sure we actually finish painting the rest of this. So I need PBR asphalt for behind the store, which this is still very rough in terms of the geography and so forth. But it gives us something to play that doesn't look totally out of character. Should do a different kind of dirt. Maybe some grass in there. Grass dirt mixture. Also should put some asphalt here. That feels right and proper. Then never did build loading platforms for there, but that'll just have to be another day of things. Just vary the types of dirt. I think that's all we really need to do for some of these areas. We're gonna also do some structure. I should probably do a kind of way of having a berm along the road. something about that doesn't look great. But maybe there, here, yep. And then we can have a grass spline around here, just to make this look like, not PBR grass, but grass. Like really weedy and grown in and so forth. Just to have some grass as well, give it a little bit of variety. And then along here, probably grass there too. That we can also augment with some textures. So I feel like we need something a little bushier for that. Not that bright though. About this. Yep, that seems about right. I feel like it's too tan and yellow though. Need a little bit of gray. I mean, this is also us roughing it in, kind of, so we can finesse it later. Oh, Jordan, thank you for the super chat. The Mythbusters tested whether higher ground gives you an advantage as said by Obi-Wan Kenobi in episode 3. It was busted. Oh, that reminds me, I gotta keep... I've started watching Mythbusters all the way through. So that is a good reminder to keep going. It's interesting to watch the evolution of it as well, like where they start out in season 1 versus, you know, what we knew that they became. Okay, and then maybe mixing some other kinds of PBR dirt. We are going to need some other kinds of, there's definitely a lot of emptiness that we're going to have to address in different ways. Like back here, I definitely need a lot more in the way of trees. Glad I made this a two-parter, because there was just no way this was going to be a single part. This may return in January, it may return in February, we will see. But I always welcome your feedback, and if you're like, I like this, but I want to see something else, let me know. Also, good time to mention, as a reminder, that I do commissions. So if you want to see me build your dream layout live, or even not live, but to just build your layout in a train simulator so that you can play with it in train sim, or test it to be able to build it in real life, I do commissions, and you can find out more about that process by visiting greattrainlayouts.com. I'm gonna ballast in the track. I need to see what the ballast texture is. I forget which track type I used. This is the SP type. So I need GR3. Okay, so I had the right one, but I need PBR version. So we're gonna ballast the track, which is gonna make it blend in really nicely. These are new RTXT tracks from Jointed Rail, today's sponsor, and they are great. They are procedural, as you can see, so you have the ability to do the switches, and they come with matching ground textures, so it's a lot easier to blend them into your ground textures. They don't stick out as much, as you can see from there. Yeah, that makes me happy. So a lot of vegetation we need to add, but I know you guys are looking forward to getting to start with the trains, so we will do that. So I think we'll call that good for now. That gives us our beer distributor, our scrap dealer, the chemical distributor, the not warehouse, the lumber distributor. I want to patch that hole. I really would like to get a little bit of green. Running over time a little bit. But I also don't think this switching will take too long, so maybe we can afford to go over a wee bit, as it were. There is track that just dips down. Yes, there's definitely imperfect track. But we're not going to worry about refining that perfectly today. We're going to refine that more later. Let's do some tree stuff just to see how much I like it. Interesting. Amazing how once you start placing trees that it can really determine the direction that you end up going. Those are too green. I like... Because I do think it makes sense to have this tree. The sosnas actually, I think, make the most sense, strangely enough. Maybe it isn't that strange, but... I do like the sosnas. Something about that looks right to me. I need more variety than this in the long run. But do I like it as a starting point? A lot. And then let's put an IDS forest in the back on the wall layer, because I think that'll look good. Maybe not. Maybe this one? Let's see. Not that high up, mind you. But the idea is there. Like, if you put it, say, that height, it'll work for today. A for experimenting and trying. Yeah, I like that. I'm happy with that. I mean, a lot of finer detail we need to add. I am still not happy with how empty these patches are, but for the sake of let's get on with playing with choo-choos, I think that is a good effort for today. So what have we learned? Well, we've got all of our track in place. Yeah, there is that dip. Maybe we can briefly fix that dip. So that needs to be a -4, clearly. And then that needs to be a -4. Not more than -4. Oh, because it's locked and I can't manipulate it. So I need to unlock that layer. Nope, but I do need to unlock the layer. Now I can do -4 and see how that works. Does that get us down to 1.5 in time? Interestingly, no. The math is off there. Yep. Definitely a steeper grade than what they claimed it would be. Unless we reduce the grade through here. That is a thought. So, if we start going downhill here... like so. And then whatever that height is. Because now we've got it down to 0 inches. As opposed to... yeah. Opposed to 1 inch. Which should then allow us to get to where we need to go. Yep, there we go. That... perfect. Okay, so... we don't have any dips in the track. All the track is... oh, well, we do have the dip over here. I never did fix that. Do I want to fix that now? Sure. That should only take a minute. I know I keep saying one more thing, then we'll play. One more thing. But we will get this sorted out. And then we'll move on with the rest of our fun and frolicking. Okay. There we are. Now, no dips in the track. Everything technically works. All of our switches should have... Oh, and I have to lower that track a little bit. Or the... Oop. On track. That works. Okay. Experimentation. But I'm digging this a lot. One more thing to say. I know, Rudy. I know. I appreciate your patience and understanding with me getting caught up. I'm glad you think it's a solid start, Nonami. Okay, now we are really going to do the thing. And I'm proving we're going to do the thing because we're going to save. So, let's come up with a basic activity that gives us a chance to work all of these industries in here. And gives us... Because this is... Here's the test with this section. There is a run around here. It is a teeny weeny run around. Like, you could get around 1 or 2 cars. So I'm not sure how... Let's talk operations a little bit. You've got this interchange here that you could be working. You've got this area up here, which, if we refer back to our... we'll just lock that layer. We refer to the base maps. Oh, it doesn't show it on this. But if one were to look at the full track plan, these 3 are technically interchange tracks. So you've got a little bit of interchange with this active main line here. You have a lot of interchange with these 3 tracks. You just have more room there. So it becomes a case of where do the cars originate and terminate from? Well, since we're not working a lot and since we haven't done anything with these, we're going to try switching as if this was our only interchange. Because I want to see what it takes. So let's do... I want to work each of these spots at least once. So let's say we've got... let's 2 tank cars to lift, or maybe 1 to lift and 1 to spot. I think 2 is the limit. Maybe 2 to lift, 2 to spot. Now you get into also how long is your train. I'm not going to even think about like how many cars you can fit on the interchange. So the tank cars are just a swap-a-rooney. Let's do a lumber swap as well because X, I think, is the... No, what is the... STRX, that's what it is, STRX. Okay, so we need some center beam cars, so we're going to put an empty one here. I mean, there too, it's like, do you put 1 or 2? Because you have room for 2, so... We will do 2 for 2. I mean, this is going to make our life very hard, but... I kind of feel like it's worth it for the sake of just really pushing the envelope and trying to figure out what all we can do here. Because even though there's this passage track, it's almost like I don't think it could be worked like a passage track. Like maybe if you had 1 car, but I think it's more like you have to work it as if the passage track didn't exist. Because otherwise you don't have the means to do so. So we're going to treat it like that. Yeah. Refrigerator cars. So, YX, I think, is my refrigerator car. So we'll put 1 in. Oh, I didn't make that door tall enough. Oops. Oh well. I'll fix that later. Not quite the right type, but we'll do 1 anyway, just because that's representational. And a scrap gondola. The scrap gondola, we won't do a 1 for 1. We'll do that as a... we'll just do that as a drop. Which I need a Milgon for that. Perfect. Okay, so we have a lot of work ahead of us. Let's see how we do with it. Yeah, I know you're all impatiently waiting for me to start switching. We're getting to the good part. we're getting to the part where we can really appreciate the motive power for today. We're gonna go with, I'm feeling like a GE. I'm feeling like a toaster. So, instead of the Metro Mountain Terminal, we've got the Southeast Terminal. This is a pack. I've linked it in the description. Do I just want to do the 1 unit? Yeah, it's gonna be... I mean, I don't think it really matters either way if I do 1 or 2. But we'll do 1. I'm already realizing, I think, an issue that I'm going to run into with this, but I'm not going to say anything for now because I want to see how it all plays out. Okay, so this is what we're going to be using for switching today. Because why not? Give it another notch and we'll find if it fits in the drawer. Yep, I agree with you on that. Okay, so this is our train where it's coming from staging. We're going to switch out the tankers and the lumber flats, and then we'll come back and deal with the cryo car. Actually, we might not have to. We might be able to do them as they are. Yeah. Okay, we're going to do a thing. Here we go. So this is our motive power for today. And let's make sure our switches are set correctly. We'll get going here. The thing that I was realizing might be an issue, and we'll find out if it proves to be an issue or not, is the tight turns. Sometimes Trainz doesn't like having diesel switch on tight turns, but we'll see what we can do. So, thanks again to Jointed Rail for sending these. So this is the Southeast Terminal locomotive pack. There are 5 engines that are included with the pack. This is the GE of the bunch, the C40-8. But there's also a Jeep 38, an SD50, SD40-2, and an SW1500, which you could say, isn't that more appropriate for switching? The answer is yes, but who doesn't like a good challenge? Man, looking at that scene of it going under the bridge, I do like that. That is a nice scene. I think that is it's a good scene divider too. It's a way of kind of splitting this. I mean, not that this is a huge scene, but it just gives it a sense of separation. Makes it a little bit more interesting. Yep, it's binding on the curves. That's the one thing I don't like about Trainz is that sometimes things bind on the curves, and I wish they didn't, because I like my model railroad track plans that have these really tight curves. Because obviously your locomotives would not be struggling like this in real life. So we will pull through here. We'll make sure our switches are set correctly. Oh, it really does not like that curve. Yep, it got stuck. To be clear, this is not an issue with the jointed rail locomotive. This is an issue with Trainz, where, especially when you have long cars, they just get bound on curves, and it doesn't like that. And I need to badger N3V about why that is that it does that, because I do find it annoying. Having a problem when running sessions like this. And weirdly, it's not an issue with steam locomotives. Man, really does not like that curve. I should have thought of that when I chose this track plan, but what if I try putting that curve on a 50% grade? A 50% grade downhill, sure, it won't have issue. A 50% grade uphill, not so much. Okay, we're gonna use the 5-fingered crane, and we're gonna, just to get us out of that godforsaken curve, and then we're gonna pull ahead. I'm gonna try using this runaround for actual switching. My idea being is that if I can fit both of my cars in here, then I can run around them. I can drop off the gondola and then the reefer. If I can't, then I can just do one at a time. But that's kind of what I'm testing. Something tells me I'm gonna have to go one at a time. That's, yep, too tight a clearance. So we sheet and we move this car back here, like it was there all along, we can back up and have our gondola here, and then we can run around it and we can properly deposit it. I might just switch to the SW1500. This one just really is not liking these tight curves. Much as I like it, it likes me. It does not like the tight curves. There we go. Making some progress there. I'm almost wondering if there's really any... Because I'm using it for this particular switch, but I'm not convinced. I should also decrease those switch trigger radii. I'm not convinced that it actually has much overall utility, and that it would probably be easier if I was just switching the facing point, focusing on all the switching that faced one direction and then all the switching that faced another direction. Because doing these runarounds is a little bit more labor intensive, but for the sake of having some interesting switching, and this is our one scenic area, we'll go for it. I do like how this initial, I like having the construction yard. Like, that to me feels different. I mean, right now it just feels like they're kind of trapped in the center, but I think if we put like a dirt road crossing over these tracks as an access point, then it makes a bit more sense. And maybe like a little shelter for them to be underneath. Speaking of greattrainlayouts.com, I'd also encourage you to go over there to download a number of the routes that we've completed on the live stream, and some other ones that are just other projects that I've worked on from time to time, and you can check those out. And if you really like these layouts and want to gain... Oh, that guy was trying to beat the train in the worst way. If you really want to gain early access to layouts, I encourage you to go to patreon.com. Right now we have the Flushing and Brooklyn layout, which we built back in August, available for early download, and you can check that one out. So those episodes that we create on the live stream, or not episodes, routes that we create on the live stream are released to greattrainlayouts.com a month after they've been on Patreon. So if you want early access, you go to patreon.com/theroundhouse. And I have a feeling my cars are running away. My cars are running away. Let's see if this has a handbrake or something I can use to stop it. It has doors. I can open the doors. But it does not have handbrakes. This is another issue one might face with this track plan. Is it seems to me, besides the fact that there's just the natural Trainz limitation of let's put those cars there and see if that stops them. Ish. The other problem that you face is that you've got this grade here, so you really can't leave cars on the hill. That could be kind of like an operating bulletin where you say, okay, you can't park cars on the hill, which then becomes an interesting problem of, well, how do you go fetch these cars and swap them out? But maybe you have to send smaller jobs. Maybe it's not like one big job that goes down. It's like when you're working these, you send some train down that just goes to these. I don't know quite how you do that. I mean, that runaround is just so tiny. That idea of stopping the train did not seem to work as well as I hoped it might. The problem with these sort of memory physics. We'll just put them here. Surely they'll stop at that point. At some point they will. There we go. Okay. And now they're rolling back the other way because we have a hill on the other side too. See, this is why we're playtesting, because, I mean, we could kind of giggle, go, tee-hee, the cars are rolling. And it is funny. I will fully admit that. But it also reveals this issue that you want to have these full sets of cars that you take. That you're like, in my mind, if this were real life and you didn't have ridiculously sharp curves and grades that make your cars run away, you'd have a train that comes from interchange, comes down along the curve, works the beer distributor and the scrapyard, goes further down, works that interchange, comes back up, works the tank car. Okay, that doesn't count as a switching error, because I'm talking and the cars have been... These have been very troublesome trucks today. That's what they are. They're troublesome trucks. You come back and then you work these guys. But the problem is you've got hills on either side, so you don't have any flat spot to just work them. But it's also true, we probably don't need this grade here. I mean, yes, we have it to climb up, but given that there should be enough clearance, I don't know if we need that grade. So if we just got rid of that grade... Oh, hey, Pacific Productions, thanks for the super chat. Maybe just use 2 locomotives and have one of them be used as brakes for the cars while the other one goes switch cars at industries. Not a bad idea. Let's maybe do that as a thing. We'll derail these. Get them a little bit more fixed. And honestly, not entirely unrealistic. That sparks an idea. Not quite what I was thinking, but what if this was being worked by 2 locomotives? Because there are and then on the other end we had at SD50. Okay, I'm liking where this is going. So we'll roll that, and then we'll recouple those. Okay, so now those cars are not going to roll away on us. And now we also don't have to do runarounds because we have a locomotive on each end. Now that's an interesting operating practice. Oh, I don't push that back far enough. We'll fix that. But if you have a locomotive on each end, then you can kind of use one and then use the other. And there are switch jobs that do that kind of operation where you've got a switcher on one end and then a switcher on the other, just so that crews don't have to worry about runarounds. I'm glad you find it to be phenomenal switching content, Rudy. I'm glad that this is serving some sort of form of amusement. So that we use this engine when working the... and it could be an interesting 2-person job, whereby you've got this crew that can kind of take care of these cars while that crew takes care of these cars. Interesting way of doing it. Man, those crossing... I'm going to turn off the road traffic is what I'm actually going to do. But they are relentless today in terms of just coming out and completely going in front of us. So, disabled traffic. There we go. So that one I can clear out of the way for now. Then we can use the SD50 for the purpose of switching out that reefer. And also not have to worry about any more runaway cars. I like that. But I might also actually have to help that guy, because those cars are binding on the hill pretty badly. Yeah, such an unfortunate limit. And here's the strange thing, like, if you use steam locomotives on this route... Oh, glad to have helped then. Thanks, Pacific. If you use steam locomotives on this layout, they wouldn't bind like this. It would not be the same kind of issue. Okay, now that we've got 2 engines, can we unstick this? It's probably those... these long cars that are doing it, Anna. Is part of the issue. So let's try something else. Let's move this. Let us unstickify it and move it here. So let's pretend that there's an embargo, or not an embargo. operating rule whereby you can't use... Oh, but you still have to get them around tight turns like that. I don't know. This is a quandary. So if we try... Yeah, it's all these sticky corners. Just don't know what it is about it. It's like you use a steam engine on this and you don't have any problem. You use a diesel and it doesn't like it. Which is unfortunate because I very clearly made this a diesel error route. But kind of unsticked it. Interesting dilemma. Because there's no way around it. Like, as soon as you start lifting in cars from over here, you run into this issue if you're going to stop on this curve. Interesting challenge. We might have to go to the other layout sooner than I imagined, just because if we're not going to be able to actually get any switching accomplished, that's kind of a problem. Yeah, I wish I'd remembered that was an issue with this, with layouts like this. And it's such a bummer too, because it really, like, it limits the creativity when Trainz doesn't. I mean, it's still a great way of being able to visualize the layout and say, here's what works and what doesn't. But it totally cramps the playtest ability. That's with both engines, but I can't use both engines. We might just have to pause there on this one. Never fear, I have another layout that we'll spend some more time. Diesel's too long for the curves. It's not about their length, though. Because if we switch it out, I'll show you. So if we switch this out for, I suppose well, we're at it. I'll show you what all is included in the pack, because it is a nice roster of diesel locomotives. So we've got this, the C48, GP38-3. So we'll put that on one end of the train. SD40-2. SD50. Which you saw me using a moment ago, and the SW1500, which we're going to put on the other end. Check out that offset headlight. That feels very modern industrial. So these are the locomotives that are included with the Southeast Terminal pack. Again, link in the description. So let's see if using a shorter wheelbase engine fixes it. I have a feeling it's... I don't even know if it's the cars, though, because there's... one of the various layouts that I haven't yet shown you guys on stream is the... Oh, that's working a little better. Okay, you might be right about the whole binding on the curves thing because they're diesels. That, you could be right about that. We'll try that. But I built the Model Railroader Virginian project layout, and it's pretty much done. It works perfectly fine with a steam engine, and we're talking about short hoppers, so it's not the length of the car that's an issue there. It's the... Nope, that's getting stuck too. It's not the length of the car that's an issue. It's just that for some reason, and I'll show you why it is the case. I'll just swap us out with steam locomotives. Let's do an 080 just to keep it somewhat switcher focused. Or I know what I want to use it. Yes. Since I was talking about the Virginian project layout, we'll use a Virginian locomotive. Not realistic at all for this, but just to prove the point. So, same cars, same exact cars that two diesels were the two diesels were struggling with and one diesel was just getting stuck with. Now we're going to use the Virginian tank engine, which doesn't have more power than a Jeep 38. And yet, you will note, it can pull these cars. So, it's not the cars. It's not the locomotive in the sense of power. It's the sense of the locomotive is a steam engine versus a diesel, and that's what it boils down to. So I don't know if you really want to watch me. I can pull an Everett Railroad and kind of switch these out with a steam locomotive if you want to watch that. Kind of a bummer not to use the diesels, but it illustrates the point, which is it's not an issue of power. It's an issue of that diesels get bound on curves in ways steam engines don't. And it's weird because I could put like a big boy on here. And you think, oh, there's no way it'll work because it's so tight. Doesn't have an issue. Or something with a really long wheelbase, like a decapod, would still work. It's a strange issue. Reading your comments. Lumber cars, rear bogie forces the front bogie. Not sure about that. There's probably some issue with how the physics engine calculates radius forces with certain size engines or cars. Yeah, something along those lines. Above my pay grade. So, we're going to have to re-examine that. Because I don't want to bore you guys with frustrating switching. So, here, at least for the time being, is the Metro Mountain Terminal. Don't tune out just yet. We're gonna take a look at we're gonna check in on last month's build, the Orford. But just to leave this one for the time being, you can see that we've got our industries in place, and we've got a nice variety of industries. We've got some good scenes that are starting out. This has been a really surprising one, especially how much that factory has it's just such a nice centerpiece. Every layout, you find a way to have a centerpiece, and in this case, that is the centerpiece. So, when we come back in just a couple of minutes, I'm going to show you where Orford is, and it's come along a little bit since you've seen it. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. And here is the status of Orford. So Orford, as you can see, I've got the floor in place. I worked on the fascia. I added some legs. So all we have left are some small details. But this is where Orford's at since I last showed it to you guys. You can see we don't have that much left to do. There's, especially around, the main stuff is around the trolley line. So I'll show you that in a minute. But this is what I came up with. We've got our staging yard back here. I really tried to emphasize the idea of it was N scale, hence why I made these legs custom, and I made them really tall, so that these trains look like they're N scale. So, this is the one scene where, as I said, I haven't got the trolley wire in yet, so that's not quite done. But everything else I'm pretty happy with. Scenically and detail-wise. I do need to switch out these switch stands for something else. I've thought about using Caboose Industries ground throws like I have on other routes, but I'll probably just use some more realistic looking ones. If we unpause, we can let our train pull ahead. So we could do some more yard switching. Maybe send another train in here to get broken down and assemble some cars for it. Haven't really come up with an ops scheme for it. Somebody recommended a tool called Ops Buddy, and I did look that up. And it's a neat spreadsheet tool for being able to organize operating sessions. The key is that everything's manual. It's more like Like there's no, it's an Excel sheet, but there's no calculations in it. It's, you have to enter everything manually and like roll dice to determine what happens. There was a little bit more work that I wanted to put in as far as for this layout. But let me know if there's anything in particular you'd like to see. I know we simulated some passenger office last time, and we can do a little bit more of that now that we've got the full scenery in place. Oh, we could get the trolley going as well. Maybe what we should do... Thoughts and feelings. Maybe we'll assemble the cars in an outbound train. We'll throw in some new random cars. We'll do a quick assembly, get some mainline power staged. Yeah, let's assemble a train for departure. That feels like a nice 20-minute activity. Meanwhile, we'll let that train keep running on the main line. So let us spawn in a... Or, no, we have some, I think, right? We have a freight engine in here we can pull from. One without the... Yeah, there's our power right there. Okay, so we'll take 6067 out. And we'll fuel it up. And then we will... Well, let's put some random cars in, just so we have something to assemble with it. Some cars that have come in. So, maybe a block of reefers. Learned a lot about reefers. So we've got a block of reefers that are set to, they're Milwaukee Road ones, but they'll do. So we got a block of reefers that have to get out, that are stuck behind these cars that... Yeah, no, I don't want to make it that complex. We'll just put the reefer block in front of those cars. We've got a reefer block, that, and then... Oh. Maybe some... We don't have any tank cars, so maybe we'll have a block of tank cars that need to go too. Just so we have a few things to assemble, and then we'll put them on the right track. Good enough for me. Okay, so first thing we need to do is we need to get our mainline power, or, well, we need to get the switcher out of the way, because we're going to use this guy to do the switching. Or do I want to use the smaller one? Because I used this one to switch last time. This is, I really like this engine a lot, but let's give the other one some love. So we'll swap out which switcher we're using first. Get that out of the way. I don't want to talk about it too much because it's going to be the subject of a future live stream, but this layout has given me a very new appreciation for engine terminals and for modeling them. And that's something that maybe even next month, and if not next month, in February, we're going to cover more on the show. Okay, well, since we're already out, we'll just bring the freight power out so it can be fueled up. Clicking on these turntables is always a tricky thing. I wish they made that a little... Because, like, I'm clicking on the arrow, but it clicks on the tender behind the arrow. One of the UI elements that definitely need to be improved in the long run with Trainz. So we'll get this fueled up, topped off with water, and then it can go over to a ready track. Well, actually, it should probably go over to the ready track once its train is assembled. So we'll just get it on the fueling track so it can be fueled while we're getting its train ready. I like that. What a throwback, and remember playing Trainz 2004 on my old Dell and CRT monitor. Yes, Trainz has come a long way in 20 years, that is for sure. I love these models so much. Okay, so that is getting fueled. Now we can do our switching. We'll bring our yard switcher out. The last time we were running 7470, aka the Conway Scenic Railroads 060, and now we're gonna, this month, we're gonna run 7312, aka the Strasburg Railroads 060. I should put the headlight on. Oop, too far. Oops. But, nice glamour shot nonetheless. We'll turn this guy back. Oop, one more. And now we'll go back. So, first things first, we're going to need to... Do I grab the whole... Yeah, I should grab the reefers, then the tank cars, then the other cars that we're going to put on the train. Those two cars, which are on the same track, then a caboose, throw it on one of the departure tracks, this guy can couple up to it, depart, and that'll be our live stream. So, curious to see what you guys think of how Orford turned out. This was, as you can see, I got very excited about it. I got very carried away with it. I was like, oh, I just am going to do a couple things, and then I ended up doing everything, pretty much. When do I do switching layouts? I'm not sure I know what you mean by when do I do switching layouts. Can you clarify what you mean, Matthew Harris? That's... Yeah, I'm not sure what you mean by that. Oh, could have done that another way. But that's okay, I'm going to do it this way. So, for those who didn't tune in last month, this is what we built. This is Orford, based on Ozark lines by Andy Sparandio, who was very big into designing elaborate but realistic yards. And that, to me, is what I love about this plan. There's two things. I love that we have the engine terminal on a peninsula, and I love that we have such a big yard so that you could do car classification, breaking down trains, building up trains. This would be really tempting to build, even in HO, because you could scale it up to HO and it would still work. You would need, I think it's 10 feet long in N, so it becomes 20 feet in HO, but it's a feasible build. I meant, when did you switch to this layout? Like 10 minutes ago or so. We were experiencing too many technical difficulties with switching in the MB&T, the Metro Mountain Terminal, so we're going to something where the switching is a lot easier. And in the meantime, I'm going to harangue N3B to look into this bug of cars, of why a diesel locomotive binds on a curve but a steam locomotive does not, because that just does not make any sense to me whatsoever. Alright, we've got our reefer block. We're going to get our tank car block next. I get a trackside shot here. Oh, that makes me happy. Have I told you guys how much I love Steam lately? When will this route be released? Probably in a few months, because there's other previous routes on the live stream that have yet to be released. But if you want early access, I encourage you to become a member on Patreon, because it will be released 1 month early there. Right now, the Flushing and Brooklyn layout that we built back in August is on Patreon. And the next layout that's going to be available on the public website is... actually one that I didn't live stream. It's the Arcade and Attica Railroad for HO scale. I'll be putting that on the website in the next few days as of December 2023. That was a track plan that I designed and I built, and I'm finally getting it done and released. So I look forward to you guys being able to experience that one. If you like the Arcade in Attica, Tourist Railroad in New York, you've got the K&L set, then this is a way that you can enjoy that. Alright, got our tank car block. Now we're just going to get these two. We're going to grab these two box cars here, the caboose, put it on a departure track, and send it on its way. Although I'm realizing my caboose track is not accessible by the... Oh, I did that kind of in the wrong order, but I don't think it's going to matter. Because the caboose track doesn't connect to the... What might still have enough room, headroom, but it doesn't connect to the yard throat. So I have to grab the caboose separately. But I should be able to do that. There's a couple ways I can see doing what I want to do. Yay for switching puzzles. Is what I think I'm going to end up doing, because I do have this run around here, so I could grab a caboose, run around it, put it on the back end of, but I don't have that ability to run around those freight cars. Well, actually, no, that's not true. I can run around the freight cars when they're on the departure tracks. So I could put them on the departure tracks, then grab the caboose, run around it, put it on the other side, and then put my power on it and connect it. Yep, there we go. Oh, thank you, Pacific Productions. N3V has this Training Days thing now. It's basically a live Q&A YouTube stream they do every first Wednesday of every month. Yeah, and they also do Q&A in their Discord, and that's what I joined one of those. I'll have to see if I can join them in January, because that's a good time to talk with them. Like, I asked if there's any chance that we would get the ability for trolley poles to follow trolley wire, and they said no. But it was worth asking. We should give that guy a break. He's been running a while. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop this for a moment, and I'm going to give this guy a specific direction. If I bring up the menu, I can go into... Oh, that's not what I'm going to tell him to drive to track marks, staging. We'll put him on 3 or 4 east. So he's going to make his way to 4 east. Hopefully the way that I want him to go. And then we'll bring the commuter train out and we'll just run that in circles instead. Meanwhile, back to assembling our train. You know, for just randomly throwing a couple cars down and collecting them and going, this is still satisfying. Like, this was not a session that I planned out with great detail, and yet it still feels satisfying. Which means if you did have a full operating scheme where you had different destinations for cars, so you had to structure them in the yard in different places and then reassemble them in specific ways, that could be very fun. There's a lot of operating potential with this layout. It almost makes me want to go to N-Scale, and then I realize that A, N-Scale Steam is expensive, and B, none of it's Canadian. I may have received a Rapido D10 in HO, and it may be absolutely stunningly gorgeous. And so, ergo, HO it is. Okay, so we'll put it on departure 1, right, which it's set for. We can drop those off, and then we can Then we'll grab a caboose, run around with the caboose, put it on the other end. And we can bring our mainline power up. But I'll tell you what, even though I'm an HO guy through and through, but the advantages of N and being able to fit more in a smaller space, this is a good example of that. Because it's definitely, you could fit it into a basement. Like, one of my previous apartments had a basement where this would have fit. So it is feasible, in HO. It is feasible, it's just, you know, I think, again, 20 feet long. You do need a bit of room. You also need a bit of a budget for all of these switches, because there's a number of them. There are a lot of switches. And a lot of steam. Oops, of course, I put it on the same track as the, of course I did. I put it on the same track as the computer train. Okay. Nope. Plan B. We use the old-fashioned crane method of doing what we wanted to do. So, now we've got switch start. Oh, except I have to tell it to cancel its orders, or it's just going to change switches and keep doing what I don't want it to be doing. It could be bad. So I just need to make sure the switches are set. That's good to go. I still haven't derailed my other switching train, so yay for multitasking. But now we can appreciate not Thomas the Tank Engine for a little bit of a change of pace. And we've got that switch thrown, so now everything should be okay as far as the main line is concerned. And now we'll go grab our caboose. So as we're going into the new year, I'm eager to and interested to hear about, are there specific types of layouts you'd like to see me build on Great Train Layouts Live? Are there, whether it's a specific type of layout, something to accommodate a specific type of motive power, era? Interested to hear your input on that particular subject. Because I know what I'll be doing, again, for next month. There's a couple of options of what I'll be doing for next month. But I'm always interested to hear what your thoughts are, what you'd find helpful or interesting. Also thinking about, and I'm curious to know too where you fall on the sort of watching me play versus watching me build front, because there are some layouts that I have built off-stream, and I've thought about doing another episode where we play through 2 or 3 layouts. So that wouldn't have any construction, but we'd get to talk about ops. Interested to hear your thoughts on that front. Alright, got the caboose that I now have to run around. And then I can put it at the tail end over there. And then we'll be able to bring that to big power. Matthew Harris, you'd love a CP steam layout. Good to know. I think you will like what is in store for next week, then. I think you will like that very much. And if it's not next month, then it'll be February. Also curious about eras. You know, if you guys have any specific eras of like what you enjoy watching here on the live stream. I will say too, it is so fun to just watch a train go around in circles while doing switching. And this is something that works as a single player experience. For a long time I was hesitant about building this layout because I felt like it might not be interesting as a single player experience because it's just you and look at this huge yard and the huge engine terminal and all this stuff you have to do, but it actually, I like that it can accommodate multiple operators. Again, I think you could run probably 3 trains at a time safely, but it works as a single player experience. I am having a blast just putting this train together. You're gonna go, have a good night? Okay, well, you take care. Happy holidays to you, Matthew. Now let's get this back and assembled. Oh, I've learned a lot in the past month about switch towers too. So one of the Trainz payware items you can buy is called Pottery's Looped Line. And there's a mode in that game where in the sessions that come with that route, where you simulate being a signalman, which includes having to ring certain bells in certain order and throwing the switches. And it made me really, really want a switch tower simulator. So we did just get Railroader as a new train simulator, where you are able to, you have a CTC panel, and that's cool. But I would love to be able to walk into a switch tower and throw switches and look out the window and watch as trains were going different routes because I changed the switch. The thing about it in Trainz, like, it's cool and it does work, but there's some performance lags. You can tell that it's some very smart programmers trying to get Trainz to do a thing it wasn't designed to do, which is okay, but means it's not a fluid experience. It's a bit rough in places. Alright. And then once we have this, I'll probably just leave them on the main because we're going to go in eastbound anyway. We'll probably get this guy parked so that I don't run into issues. We'll get those switches thrown. But oh man, I could rave about how much I love this lab. This is a really fun little puzzle. Like, it is very satisfying. I'm looking forward to getting this one up for you guys. I think the next layout that's going to go into pre-release this month on Patreon is going to be the that Ian Rice track plan that we did. That was a passenger branch, or not passenger, but a branch line. Like a Midwest branch line that we did back in the summer. That's likely to be the next one to see release. A lot of good things to expect in the future as far as GreatTrainLabs.com for new routes that you can enjoy. See where that commuter train is, so I can, oh, yep, perfect. Now I can stop it, and then I'll be able to bring the freight train into the scene without issues. And we'll throw switches there to make sure everything's good. Okay. So, we'll bring our power back. So this is the kind of thing where if you had somebody else running, they could have moved this closer already, but it still works as a single player situation. Headlight on. That switch, which it is not. And then we'll make sure we're set to go to the front of the train. This is one of the models that allegedly Rapido is going to do in the future in HO scale, and if they end up doing it, I'm not a CN guy, but I mean, I like CN. I'm more a CP guy, but Rapido does very nice stuff. Okay, there we go. Strikes me too, you could model helper operations, like if, obviously this is yard switcher, so we are not going to be using it for helper ops, but one could model helper operations where you put something on and then it goes to staging and then the helper comes back from staging the engine facility. If there was like a big hill or something out of this division, that could be interesting to have. Okay. We're going to tuck this guy out of the way on the other departure track. And I wonder if I could send him all the way back and he'd actually know what he was... Nah, that's probably too much of a big ask for the AI, so we'll just tuck him out of the way on the departure track. We're just going to get this guy going, and then that's going to be our live stream for tonight. Okay, so we just need to make sure we are rooted to go out on A, and we are. Great. Man, that almost looks like I knew what I was doing when I thought up that train off the top of my head. Blow for the crossing. Oh, right, there's a wall there. And there we have it. We built up a train in the yard, and we sent it on its way. I hope you guys enjoyed tonight's live stream of the Metro Belton Terminal with a cameo appearance by Orford. It's always great to enjoy being with you guys and designing these layouts. I have a lot of fun building them and playing with them. I hope you enjoy watching along. And if you want to see when the next live streams are going to be, I think the next one, they are typically the second Thursday of the month. So our next one will be on January 11th, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Look forward to having you tune in then. Until then, you have a good night if you're watching live, or if you're not, thank you for watching. Bye-bye.